Well, hello, everyone. So glad you decided to join me today. In fact, there'll be people coming in to join me today. We want to give them time to get in. We've had quite a week, and last couple of weeks, people's brains have just been going off with the Word of God as we begin to discuss things about our lives and relationships. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, about self denial or denying self, and be able to figure out the difference of that. And these are things that I've been knowing, for a long, long time. And I taught it years ago and kind of forgot about it and realized that our culture has so much that we needed to reintroduce it and you know, get our get ourselves on what Jesus meant and what the Bible means about that. Yeah, I see people coming in, Nathan and Darren and Mark. So glad you jumped right in there. We'll give some people uh, time to get in. And I don't know if all three of you heard the Sunday sermon and the one before. Of course, 2 weeks ago, we just introduced the idea of spiritual relationships and the idea of life without rules, meaning under the law. And everybody, teaches today we're under grace, we're grace, 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 and then just sort of don't really understand what that means. And but we're not under the law. And basically, what they want to do is get rid of rules and under the law, but they don't tell you what that means. And the balance of that is there's not that we're lawless. We have the law of the Spirit, the law of the Spirit of life. Otherwise, we'd be lawless. And so Jesus just in the Bible and Paul all put together just explains that so well, and we learn about that. Yeah, Nathan, that's pretty good stuff, isn't it? About relationships, and you really needed both weeks to reel it. But people are getting it, and I hear lots of stuff. Hi, Elnora, and Julie's with us, and glad you're watching, Julie. And I don't know what your time is over. Well, I do know, if you're here in the States or you're here in Africa, but I hope you got the last couple of weeks of teaching. It's just really, really good stuff to get you to thinking about how to walk in the Spirit. And we know that we're supposed to walk in the Spirit and not walk according to the law. We're not under the law. We know all that, but how do we apply it in our everyday lives and begin to really think about that? Hi, Vanita. And uh, so I'm hoping that oh, there's Kathy. I didn't see you. I'm hoping as the people are coming in that you really start thinking about it and saw yourselves and saw, well, am I walking in the Spirit or am I, and do I need rules? Do I need rules? Do I need, such boundaries because like growing up in in school or whatever, I said, well, just tell me what the rules are and I won't break them. And then I won't get into trouble. I won't, just tell me what the rules are. And that's not relationship. That'll keep you out of trouble, but it's not a relationship. And that's sort of what people do with religion. Just, we tell people that just come as you are, come. It doesn't matter what you've done or anything like that. And then as soon as they come in, we want to know what's the rules now. Just I don't want to get in trouble with God, or what's the rules of this group, or what's the rules of this denomination. And so we go right back to it again, and we began to start with that tremendous thought that we can hold a relationship together if we follow the rules. And that was that shook up a lot of people. They didn't want to admit it, that they may have been married a lot of years or not so many years. And the flame may have gone out in the relationship. Well, how are they holding it together? Nobody's breaking any rules. If they broke rules, then the whole relationship would go away. But, it bust up. But they're all following the rules. It's just kids and everybody, but it's not really a relationship holding them together. They're just all doing the rules, and that's what's holding them together. So we learned a lot about that, right? And I hope you that are coming in got a lot out of that. And if you have more questions, feel free to throw one in while I'm going to still sort of be on the subject, because Jesus said in both Matthew and Luke, as you probably know, whoever wants to be my disciple, what's he got to do? You want to be a disciple, and you should want to be a disciple. He said you have to what? Here, right here in Matthew, I got it right here. You must deny yourself. Deny yourself and take up your cross and follow, right? Deny yourself. Well, that's really what we began to find out when we said we're going to walk by the Spirit. You know, Paul said, if you'll walk by the Spirit, you will not gratify the lust of the flesh, or I put it in the me part, the significant me, the magnificent me, the selfish me, which is there. It's there. It doesn't go away. You can't cast out the selfishness, right? A lot of people, you know, they want to hold a deliverance service and they pray for me. And when you do, you all of a sudden realize what they're really saying is, could you cast out the me part? No, you got to bring that under subjection, and you got to deny it the power and do the will of God. And the disciple, that's what they do. So all of a sudden you begin to realize that religion got a hold of this and began to substitute denying the self, and instead substituted self-denial. And it sounds almost the same, doesn't it? Self-denial, denying self. It sounds almost the same, but it's not the same. So as soon as religion got a hold of it, you know, it all fell apart. So let's talk about self-denial first in religion. And so when religion got a hold of it, it began to come up with things you can do to show how spiritual you are. And oh, I see, Julie. I see it's 8:30 there. All right, in Uganda. And thank you for that. So self-denial. So religion got a hold of it and began to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to see how poor we can be. We're going to be poverty. We're going to be poverty, and we're going to do that self-denial. So we'll be poverty. We won't own anything, and we'll become beggars. Okay. So they became self-denial. We won't have anything. We'll just be beggars. We'll go live on a mountain, and we'll take a vow of silence. We won't own anything, and we won't say anything. So that's self-denial. Or we'll go through seasons. And so you'll notice that a lot of times Christians, particularly the Catholics, but not just the Catholics, will do that. You know, you'll see the season of Lent, and they'll say, what are you going to give up for Lent? Well, that's self-denial, right? I had a friend, really, she's a girlfriend, but I don't say girlfriend around Kathy anymore. I just say friend, right? So according to my past, I didn't have any girlfriends, all right, just friends, right, Zion? We didn't have any. So, but I had one, and she had that old religion way, and so she told me she was going to give up chocolate. She's going to give up chocolate for Lent. I never heard of Lent, and I never heard of giving up anything. But now I understand she was doing the religious thing, and it was self-denial. And when Lent was over, then she could eat chocolate again. And so religious people started that, and they'd have self-denial, and they'd see what they could give up on the outside. And Jesus was concerned about that, because he would say it, and you know this already, that he would talk about season and says, here's the problem, is you're just continually wiping the outside of the cup. And that's self-denial. That's taking the outside and saying, okay, I'm going to shine this up. As we moved into more the Protestant Reformation and into the 1900s and 1920s and like that, we got more self-denial. What was that? And Carrie Nation came along. Remember, it's a picture of her with her hatchet. And we're going to have self-denial. So we're going to be the people that we don't drink, and we don't smoke, and we don't cuss, we don't do tobacco, and everything was outward. And it's still kind of that way, right? Because somebody gets converted, they start believing in Jesus, and the first thing they do is and I'm not saying it's wrong to do it this way, but isn't this our first reaction? The first thing we do is do self-denial. Okay, so what do I do? Okay, so I don't go, what? Okay, I don't go to the bars anymore. Okay, I got it. I don't go dancing anymore. Okay, I got it. Oh, well, I still smoke. Well, try not to anymore. Try to stop that too, because that'll make Jesus happy, right? And so all of a sudden, we're in this self-denial mode, and we're just trying to get it all together, right? You know, and I can tell you a little story here because a lot of people don't think it's okay to tell you that before I was a Christian, leading up to being a Christian that day, um, I partied a lot, but I don't mention a lot that I also smoked. I was a smoker, and I smoked. Let's see, I was 23 years old when I became a Christian. I started smoking probably when I was about 16. Now, on and off before that, I remember Zion, the first time I smoked, I remember Zion in the 4th grade. So, yeah, my friend across the street, his dad smoked. Now, my dad used to smoke, but then he became a Christian and started going to the Nazarene church. And first thing they do is take those cigarettes away from you or drinking.
Yeah.
He used to drink beer, and both those disappeared because you got to do self-denial right away as a Nazarene, and so he didn't have any more. But my friend across the street, his dad smoked those Pall Mall. I don't know if you know that brand, but they have no filters on them. And so they're just, today they have filter, but none. Oh, man, are they strong. He'd steal them from his dad. And so he'd steal them from his dad, and we'd go off 4th grade, and every once in a while we'd smoke, and they were strong, boy. But by the time I was about 16, I was driving, and my dad had already died, and so I start smoking. And get this. You might not believe this, but in high school, you could smoke in high school.
What?
Between classes. If you could get, I know, this is that. Okay, guys, I lived in a different world, didn't I? If you could get, when the bell rang, if you could get across the street to the corner, because it was off of school property across the street, and get a cigarette in and still get to class,
wow,
you could smoke.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
they
and
let you leave campus. That's wild.
Yeah, you could go across the street. So I'd go. Usually it's after first hour, second hour,
Wow.
I go across and smoke and then get back to class. Nobody said a word. And then of course during lunch hour, then you could leave and you could smoke during lunch hour, and of course after school. So anyway, that's off the subject, but that's another world. Imagine that. It's kind of hard to believe today. But and when I first started traveling in the ministry and like all that kind of stuff, you could smoke on airplanes. Yeah, it's hard for people to believe that
That's
now,
crazy.
but people were smoking like, ugh.
Yeah,
Of course, I quit. Yeah. So anyway, I used to be a smoker, and so everything stopped when I got saved and filled with the Holy Spirit, but that smoking was tough. And so I kept I kept smoking after I became a Christian, and it bothered me. I didn't like it, but it was really tough to quit. So, man, every single day, Zion, I'm praying, oh, smoking. I got to quit smoking. I got to quit smoking. It's just bugging me. And I felt so terrible. Felt like a dirty Christian. Oh, I'm so weak and all that. And one day the Lord just impressed upon me, and it helped me a lot. Now, I did end up quitting, but he impressed upon me what I think we need to know. He said, listen, you're so wrapped up into quitting smoking. And he just let me know. He said, Steve, there's so many things worse than that wrong with you that I'm trying to change. Just forget about the smoking. There's so many things wrong with you. I'll get to that one. There's a lot of deep things, and I needed to get to denying self. You see, religion just gets so wrapped up into self-denial, all those outward things. I needed to get to work on denying self. If I was going to go in the ministry, I needed to get into denying self. Well, I did finally quit smoking, and Oh, wait, I got to tell you another story. Okay, so I was the band teacher and music teacher, both vocal, and I had two sides. I had an office in the middle. Over here is band, and over here was vocal. And I taught both. I split my days, And I had an office right here, and I was the only one that had a great office and a phone and everything. It was a beautiful section of building that they built on this school. I could go in on my hour off in my office during school and smoke. Yes, and they had a smoking room for teachers too at the other end. Another day. But anyway, so I quit and began to learn that there's a lot more important than self-denial, and we got to get onto denying self, and that's what Jesus began to talk about. So religion gets satisfied, unfortunately, with self-denial, and that's about as far as people go. And that's what Jesus said, but you leave the inside dirty. And so inside, unfortunately, we still have what? Selfishness, greed, pride, everybody's ego and arrogance. And we're hiding that stuff because when we go to church, yay, we're all smiling and acting like everything's fine. Then we go home and can't figure out why people are having so much struggle, and then their kids run off and quit the church and marriages getting, all of a sudden we get a surprise divorce on us. Somebody gets divorced. What? I can't believe all this stuff. Or their finances go haywire or whatever. What? Well, what's the problem? What happened? Well, they weren't denying self. They were going home. They did self-denial and looked good at church, all shiny, weren't cussing, weren't drinking, whatever. But they did not deny the self. So the self went home uh, in full swing. And so they argued or they fought or somebody's trying to get their way of power struggles. And so the kids would feel it. They'd feel that, or the marriage would feel it, or whatever relationships. And so then it would start, eventually it starts, blossoming, and trouble comes in and we can't figure it out because self-denial makes us look so good. But denying self turns us into a disciple and makes us do good. Self-denial makes us look good. Denying self makes us do good. And so that's where we were in this relationship, is finding out that somebody who denies self doesn't need rules, because they're going to know, they're going to walk by the Spirit. And when you walk by the Spirit, and the Spirit continues to work on you, say, this is what you need to do now, this is what you need to do now, and you won't gratify those things, because walking by the Spirit is more satisfying than walking by the selfish me. And you got to learn that. You got to do it over a while. But that's what a disciple does. A disciple is a disciplined one who begins to not only learn what to do, but learns the satisfaction of following Jesus. That it's more satisfying to follow Jesus than to follow myself. And it's going to take a little time to do it, but that's the way it is. And I hope you all listening know, and I'm trying to see, Zion, if some more people come in. There's Valerie. I see she came in, and I hope some more folks are coming in. And I hope you're getting this too. We were talking about this, if you get a question or an idea, or you just want to say, yeah, or I see somebody, they're clapping their hands, you're getting it. But do you see how powerful this is, you that are listening, or whether you're commenting or not? Do you see how powerful this is? Do you see how religion has gone astray and given us something that doesn't work? And so religion is just so much into this self-denial that that's what we do. And so everybody looks so good on Sunday, and we just don't, and we're covering up the rest of the time. And you know that to be true. So we don't tell people what's really going on. We don't tell people. We hide out. And because that's the way religion, good. Elnora says she gets it, Zion. So there we go. And thank you, Elnora. You're getting it. And it makes such a difference. So nothing's going to change on the self-denial, right? I'm going to tell you right now, you walk into church on Sunday smoking a cigar, they're going to throw you out, right? So you still got to do everything on the outside, right? That's just the way religion's going to be. But what they're not doing, almost everybody in church is not doing, they're not going to do anything about denying self. You're going to be sitting with greed and gossip and love of money, greed and gossip and selfishness, and that's why church and the religion gets so treacherous, is because the devil grabs those things. See, those are all the open doors to the devil. It's the open doors to Satan, and we can't figure out why we're not getting anywhere with God, or why things happen to us, or why the blessings of God are not coming to us. Well, because people don't teach this anymore. See, they don't teach this, how to deny the self. And so we live in such a selfish society, don't we? Our culture caters to self. So this is why I try to tell people, it's hard because it sounds like you're kind of criticizing another church or somebody's sermon. And I certainly, I have respect for anybody preaching. It's hard being a preacher, because even if no matter what you're preaching, you're going to get criticized. But I feel like so many pastors and leaders and sermons are actually enabling. We're enabling because we're talking about coddling yourself. We're trying to get you to feel better about yourself rather than denying the self. And so if I'm just making you feel better today about yourself, then you're going to come back tomorrow because you want to feel better about yourself tomorrow. Or you're going to come back next Sunday because you want to feel better about yourself next Sunday. It's like going into group therapy. You got to go once a week because you got to feel better. So it's like a moral group therapy together. We're all going to meet together and we're all going to get our therapy on Sunday. And then we're going to come back next Sunday because this guy, oh man, he just makes me feel so much better. And he encourages me about myself. And he makes me feel better about, you know what I'm saying? And it's no longer teaching us how to put that self in its place, where we begin to follow Jesus and make Jesus Lord, deny that self, and become a disciple. And so it's so rare to hear that phrase, die to yourself. And everybody knows you're supposed to do it, but as you read it, but and as you do that, it says that the denying of self is the same as losing yourself, right? And when you lose yourself, then Jesus says what? You're going to find yourself, and you're going to find yourself in Christ, in Jesus. And now the peace and everything that you want by having somebody feed yourself, which doesn't work. You know why it doesn't work, don't you? You know why feeding the self doesn't work? Because it never stops eating. It never stops eating. It's like if you got a big old dog. Zion's got a couple of big dogs. You ever notice they'll just keep eating and eating? They never quit. They just eat and eat until they fall over, Yeah, and so that's what the self does. The self says, I just want a little bit. Just feed me a little bit. Just feed me. And boy, it just goes and goes and goes and goes. It's like going to the buffet, right? You ever do that? You go to the buffet and you just eat and you just eat and you just eat. And finally say, I can't eat another bite. And then somebody walks by with a big old piece of cake or pie. And you go, well, maybe I could just have one more bite. The self just goes and goes and goes, right? And so it just doesn't stop. And that's why it just consumes then. And just consumes. And so we finally got to deny that self the power over us, and let the Holy Spirit then now be in control and control that self. And then we deny it its power, but the self doesn't go away. It's still there. We just don't let it rule. And then our self becomes our personality, and we can shine and be the light of the world and become what we need to be, a disciple of Jesus Christ. And we find ourselves. And when you find yourself, then you find out people start liking yourself because you're not selfish. You're not doing everything for you. It's not all about you. And all of a sudden people start saying, I like that person. I like them. They make me feel good. They make me feel safe. So do you see the difference? How religion, it took everything away. It'll have you dress in rags and poverty and not speaking and in a shack and make you begging and say, there, look how spiritual they are. They don't have a thing. No, that's self-denial. What Jesus is after is denying the self, picking up your cross and following him until you finally find yourself. Thanks everybody for joining us.